You know, we all talk to each other every single day. But have you ever really stopped to think about the rules we follow? It's interesting because what's polite in one country can actually be very different in another. In this explainer, we're going to explore why that is.
So let's start with a really simple question. Think about your job, or maybe your school. How do you talk to your boss or your teacher? Do you use a formal title, like Mr. Smith? Or do you just use their first name, like John?
Well, your answer probably depends a lot on where you're from. And that's because every culture has its own special, kind of unwritten rules for communication. How we show respect, or even just friendliness when we talk, well, that can change a lot from place to place. And that's exactly what the source for today's explainer dives into. It shows us why understanding these different ways of talking is so important today, especially in a world where we're connecting with people from all over the place. Okay, let's start with our first example, Japan. In Japan, showing respect is a really important part of the culture, and it's actually built right into the language itself. A lot of it depends on who is older or who has a more important position. So to understand this, we need to know a key word, and that word is honorifics. So what are they? Well, honorifics are just special words that you add to a person's name to show respect. We actually do this in English with titles like Mr., Mrs., or Doctor. In Japan, there are many different honorifics. For example, san is a very common one. You can add it to almost any name to be polite. If you're talking to a teacher or a doctor, you would use sensei. And oni-san is what you'd use for an older brother, but you can also use it to talk to a young man politely. And this really shows you just how important these words are. Our source says it very clearly. A sentence without these honorifics is often rude. So, you see, using them isn't just a nice thing to do. It's a really necessary part of polite conversation in Japan. All right, now let's switch gears completely and look at a more casual or informal style of communication. We're going to see how people often talk in many Western cultures, like in the United States or Australia, where the rules can be pretty different. Let's go back to that first question we had about speaking to a boss. In a very formal culture, you might say something like, Department Manager Smith. But as you can see here, in a more casual culture, you would probably just call your boss Bob or Sarah. And this really shows a key difference in how things feel. In these more casual cultures, being too formal can actually seem a little strange. It might make people think you're being unfriendly or, like our source says, cold and distant. The goal is often to make everyone feel equal, like they're on the same team. But wait, this doesn't mean there's no respect, of course not. In this style, respect is just shown in different ways. Instead of using titles, people show respect with their actions, things like making good eye contact or listening very carefully when someone speaks. This is sometimes called active listening. So, we've looked at two very different ways of communicating, right? Neither one is better or worse. They're just different. So, how do we connect with people from other cultures then? Well, there's one simple rule that helps everyone, no matter where you're from. And here it is. The most important thing isn't memorizing every rule for every culture. I mean, that would be impossible. The real key is to just be curious. Be truly interested in learning about other people and their ways of talking. When you show that you want to understand, people will always appreciate that effort. I just love this final idea from our source. It says, the modern global citizen is an explorer of not just places, but perspectives. What does that mean? It means traveling and seeing new places is great, but what's maybe even more important is trying to see the world through other people's eyes. So the big takeaway here is that respect can look different everywhere. It can be using formal titles, or it can be showing you're listening carefully. The key is just to be curious. So with that in mind, I'll leave you with one final question to think about. What is one communication rule from your own culture that might surprise a visitor? Thinking about that is a great first step to becoming an explorer of perspectives. Thanks for watching.